The NBA season's winding down. The Lakers only have 3 games remaining. They enter Sunday's matchup with the Oklahoma City Thunder on a 4-game losing streak. They're talking about trying to turn it around in time for the playoff start. Meanwhile, the Oklahoma City Thunder are fiending for that 4th spot, maybe even 3rd, and surpassing the Dallas Mavericks. So we thought we'd bring in a guest who knows that team well, Darnell Mayberry with the Oklahoman. How's it going, man?
Yeah, Mark, what's up?
Well, hey, Darnell, you wrote not too long ago these past 2 wins that the Thunder's got against the Nuggets are going to be very instrumental. In what sense do you think?
I just think it's going to help their confidence. I mean, we're talking about a team that hadn't won against Denver, in Denver at least, since KD has been on this team. So the last time they won was March of '07. When KD had just wrapped up his freshman season at Texas. So, these guys hadn't beaten that team, and I think that's just going to be huge for their confidence, knowing that they can beat the Nuggets, even though that they were playing great ball after trading Carmelo. So the fact that they were able to get 2 wins, one here and one out in Denver, I think that's just going to do a lot for their confidence.
Yeah, how do you see, at this point, obviously, the Thunder are 53-26. Looks like that first-round matchup with the Nuggets is going to happen, like you said. Given what you saw in the regular season, how do you see everything kind of shaking out in that first-round series there?
I think it's going to be an entertaining series. I mean, I think these last 2 games that they played this week were just kind of filling each other out. And, look, the Nuggets had some injuries. Chris Anderson has had an ankle injury. Aaron Aflalo has had a hamstring injury. Timothy Mozgov hurt himself in the first half of that first game Tuesday against between these teams. So the Nuggets weren't at full strength, and the Thunder was clicking. I think probably the 3rd best team since the trade deadline, Lakers and the Nuggets. So, I think everything just sort of fell into place. Now, during the playoffs, I think the Nuggets have a lot of offensive firepower, and those 2 point guards, Raymond Felton and Ty Lawson, could give the Thunder all they can handle, because the Thunder doesn't have it now. The Nuggets don't have anybody who can stop Russell Westbrook, and they got a lot of guys they'd like to try to throw at Kevin Durant. But at the end of the day, I think that they're going to be able to do whatever they want to do if that is the series.
Even though that kind of is expectations they'll match up, it seems like it's still a possibility that they could surpass Dallas in the standings, if they're able to catch up to them. How do you foresee the realistic possibility of that?
Well, it almost happened Friday night. That was the interesting thing about it. The Clippers led the Mavs most of that game in Dallas, and then Dallas came back and really just put them away down the stretch. If they had lost that game to the Clippers and the Thunder won against the Nuggets, we're talking about the Thunder in the 3rd seed today, because they'd be tied, and the Thunder has the tiebreaker over the Mavs because they got the division winner. They're a division winner. So, if that's the case, you're looking at a first-round matchup against Portland instead of the Nuggets, a 3-6 matchup. So, and then potentially playing the Lakers in the second round, if they get past their first-round opponent, as opposed to the Spurs, you'd assume if they get past their first-round opponent. So, I think it changes the whole dynamic of what this team does going. I think Denver is a better matchup for the Thunder than Portland is. Portland's got Gerald Wallace, Nicholas Batum, LaMarcus Aldridge. Wallace and Batum really played great defense on Durant, and then you got all those other guys: LaMarcus Aldridge, Rudy Fernandez, Andre Miller, even Marcus Camby. Guys like that have killed the Thunder this season at times. So I really think the Nuggets would be the best matchup for the Thunder, unless the Hornets, they could get up to a 3 seed or a 2 seed and get the Hornets as the 6 or the 7.
We're speaking with with Darnell Mayberry with the Oklahoman, and you can follow him on Twitter on his name, Darnell Mayberry. And Darnell, you're kind of mentioning just how that would change the dynamic if Oklahoma City moved up another seed, and kind of from the Lakers end, some of the writers from our end were talking about how it would actually in some way be better if the Lakers were a 2 seed, because it would avoid the possibility that the Lakers would face the Thunder in the second round instead of the Mavs. Kind of, I guess, from the other side of the coin, what's kind of your perspective on that as far as what kind of effort the Thunder would give the Lakers versus what the Mavericks would do?
I think the Lakers. I think the Thunder matches up extremely well with the Lakers now. I mean, I think they matched up quite well with them last year in the playoffs against Derek Fisher, and they had Thabo Sefolosha and Kobe, and Ron Artest kind of got the upper hand against Kevin Durant. But the Thunder's bigs last year, Nick Collison, Serge Ibaka, Nene Kirsich, and Jeff Green, they did a pretty good job trying to limit Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum. I mean, at least their effort was there. Now, we're not going to be talking about effort if we see that same series potentially in the second round this year. We're going to be talking about Kendrick Perkins and Serge Ibaka in the starting front court, and then Nick Collison and Nazir Muhammad coming off two veteran guys who know how to play in reserve. So, I think you go from talking about effort and, wow, they limited Pau Gasol to, 18 points and 9 rebounds, which is still a pretty good game. You're going to be talking about Kendrick Perkins matching up with Andrew Bynum, and I think now the game changes a little bit. You limit some of those, rebounds and put-back opportunities that the Lakers get. You're able to control the glass a little bit better. You're able to control the paint a little bit better. So, I think it'll be a pretty good test for the Thunder. I mean, no one would expect them to beat the Lakers, especially with the Lakers potentially having home court in a series if that happened. But, I think that they'd be expected to at least go another 6 games like they did last year, potentially 7.
Speaking of Kendrick Perkins, one of the I guess subplots of this game on Sunday is the recent comments that Kendrick Perkins made a few weeks ago about Pau Gasol, mentioning that he doesn't like him. He described him as soft, and from the Lakers end, they immediately got defensive, and Pau went so far as to say those kind of comments, I guess, reek of jealousy. I guess since that point in time, has Kendrick spoken any more in depth about that issue of any sort?
No, he pretty much made it clear the first time he spoke on it. He said he doesn't like him and left it at that. Anything about him, he said. He doesn't like anything about Pau Gasol. You just got to think that that's basically that Celtics-Lakers rivalry. I mean, that all stems from their battles during his days with the Celtics, and, that's understandable. I think, we're probably making a little bit too much of it. It's going to be an interesting matchup tomorrow night out there because, he doesn't like him, and this is going to be his first time being able to play him as a member of the Thunder. He's going to meet up with him a lot more, now that he's in the Western Conference. So it's going to be interesting. People are sort of starting to turn to that Nene Kendrick Perkins matchup because they got into it twice this week. But, I think that's a very good point you brought up. I think we all forgot a little bit about, he's going into battle with Pau Gasol now, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned the matchup he had with Nene. Some of the stories from you and some of the colleagues have just mentioned how he always has that rough exterior and toughness on the court. We talked, a few weeks earlier when the trade was made about what kind of impact he would have on the Thunder. But now that you've been able to see, some time with him on the court in terms of how he's meshed with the team, how has he changed their complexion thus far?
Man, when I tell you that this team is tougher now, mentally tougher now, in terms of standing up to guys, there's no way that I could overstate how much tougher this team has become. One thing that I could note that maybe would illustrate it, this team is now picking up technicals almost every night. I mean, last year this team, it sounds like a small thing. Last year this team had 12 technicals on its players all season. This year, they had 5 in a Clipper game alone last week in the third quarter.
Jeez.
So, Kendrick Perkins, I think he's up to 7 or 8 in like 11 games or 13 games with the Thunder. So, it's amazing, just the chippiness that this team has now. And they're almost kind of, I don't want to say they're turning into the Celtics, but if you remember, I don't know if it was at the start of this season, actually, it might have been 2 seasons ago when they had just won, and then they came into the season, and they were trying to get under everybody's skin. They were acting like the big bad bully on the schoolyard. And,
right.
And, they had Kendrick Perkins and Kevin Garnett, and everybody was just talking a bunch of junk. The Thunder's not to that level yet, but, they're starting to get a little chippy with these teams. I think Kendrick Perkins is a big reason why.
Since he's arrived on the team, has there been any teammate in particular do you think that he's rubbed off on the most?
Yeah, Serge Ibaka, no doubt about it. I mean, and not necessarily his toughness or his ability to stand up to anyone, but more so just the finer points of the game, establishing himself as a defensive presence in the paint, knowing how to guard pick and rolls, knowing how to show better on help side, knowing how to be a better low post defender, in terms of man defender. So, Kendrick Perkins has always been in Serge Ibaka's ear since he joined the team, and you'll see it on the court. Whenever Serge Ibaka makes a mistake, whether it's big or small, Kendrick Perkins is the first one right there in his ear saying, hey, this is what you have to do. So I think in terms of helping this team develop as a whole, Perkins has had a big impact, but he's also impacted some players individually, especially Serge Ibaka.
Well, lastly, Darnell, you look at this game, the Lakers and Thunder coming up on Sunday. What's the ultimate X factor, do you think?
The ultimate X factor, I think, is Kevin Durant making shots. He cannot throw it in the ocean whenever he steps inside Staples Center, whether it's the Clippers or the Lakers. So I don't know what it is about him in that building. He's had one good game against the Clippers, and they end up losing. I think he put up like 47 or something like that. But for some reason, Staples Center is just not on his good side. So if he can go in there and make shots and basically render Ron Artest useless, I think the Thunder has a good shot at winning. They're playing well right now. The Lakers struggling a little bit. So, normally mention X factors being role player guys, but, Kevin Durant has struggled so much against the Lakers in that building that, you got to look at him and say he's the X factor. If he gets it going, Thunder, I don't want to say have the advantage because the Lakers are at home, but I think the Thunder could play well.
Definitely. We'll have to wait and see. And Darnell, appreciate all your time and insight. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, man. Thanks, Mark.